Most founders know relationship matters, but very few know how to turn them into predictable growth engine. In this episode, we break down how high trust relationships actually work, why most networking fails, and how to build partnerships that create real revenue and long-term impact. A lot of our audiences are building serious businesses. They have strong products, strong teams, and strong tech. But growth often stalls because access to right relationships take years. And that's why I wanted Kevin's take on how to spot high leverage relationships, how to earn trust faster without manipulation, how to avoid wasting time on the wrong connections. By the end of this episode, you will have a clear way to think about relationships as a system, not a luck.
Welcome to the Lessons from the Leap podcast, where we showcase visionary entrepreneurs and leaders, sharing their incredible journeys and inspiring stories. Let's dive into the show.
Hello and welcome to Lessons from the Leap. I'm your host Gazanfer Mansoor. On this show, I get to sit down with entrepreneurs, founders, and business leaders to talk about bold decisions, pivotal moments, and innovative ideas that shape their journeys. This episode is brought to you by Technology Rivers. At Technology Rivers, we bring innovation through technology and AI to solve real world problems. If you'd like to learn more about us, head over to technologyrivers.com and tell us more about your project. Today, we have Kevin Thompson, founder of Impact and Legacy Collective and host of the $1 Million Relationship podcast with us. Kevin, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit more about your journey and what are you working on?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, coming off the back of the holidays here, and just taking a bunch of time off for the last couple of weeks, the thing that comes up first and foremost is I am a husband. I'm a father to 7 kids and grandpa currently to 6 grandkids. And for years, my whole business has been designed to just allow me to, be that husband and father I want to be, while also being the entrepreneur that I want to be. And so I'm really blessed in that regard because it has been such an area of focus that today I get to have this business that just totally fits in with and funds the lifestyle I want to live. And I get to be this connector and conduit of trust for some absolutely amazing entrepreneurs who are using their businesses as the vehicle to make their biggest impact, who are just doing amazing things in this world, and I get to make introductions for them that lead to 5-figure, 6-figure, 7-figure business deals. And with the direction we're going, we're going to be making 8 and 9-figure impact as well. And so I am really blessed, and I'm just excited to be along for this ride, Gazenfer. And so,
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. So, looking back, when did you started this? Like, what was the triggering moment when you realized relationships are really important and I should focus on just helping others build relationships? So,
a lot of entrepreneurs have heard of a company called Strategic Coach, and Dan Sullivan and Bab Smith are the founders of Strategic Coach. And it was through Dan Sullivan that I first heard the concept called unique ability, which he coined. And I first heard about that like 23 years ago. I saw Dan speak at a seminar, and he was talking about this concept called unique ability, which is unique ability is something that we all possess, this God-given gift or gifts that we're just really good at. And yet quite often we will just kind of blow it off like, oh, that's so simple. Anybody can do that. Well, no, it's not that anybody can do that. It's that we can do that because it's our gift. And, and going through that exercise with Dan, one of the things that he has you do is, well, if you in discovering your unique ability, what you do is you just reach out to other people and use specific verbiage, which he gave us, and share this with them and just ask them, hey, what do they know to be true about you? And so I asked friends of mine this that I really appreciated and I valued their opinion. And it all came back to relationships. People were always telling me, Kevin, you are the relationship guy. You place such a high value on relationships. And so like 22, 23 years ago was when and of course, as people shared with that with me, I'm like, you know what? They're totally right. And what do you do with that though? You know? And in 2014, well, 2013 is when we had the first experience, but 2014, I ended up launching a publishing company. And for 12 years, I ran that company. And I did what's called strategic partnering. I partnered with other entrepreneurs to help me get my message out into the marketplace. And if it was, I did almost 600 strategic partnerships over the 12 years that I ran that company. And that business would have not had the success it had if not for all those partners that we had. And I was so grateful to those partners for the role that they held in my life and helping me grow that business. And I was always trying to figure out, well, how can I be of service to them? And one of the things that I'm really good at, I love talking with entrepreneurs. I love hearing what they're working on. I love hearing what's got them jazzed up and fired up. I love hearing about what challenges they're dealing with, what problems, what opportunities that they're trying to take advantage of. And I just naturally default when they're sharing stuff with me to, well, who do I know that might be able to help them with what they're telling me about? And I started making those connections. And I've been doing this for like 20 years now. And the first really big connection I made was 15 years ago, where I connected these two guys, Brian Kurtz and Perry Marshall. And those two guys have since gone on to make millions and millions of dollars together and impact millions of people's lives too. And so, I started doing that, and I'm just like, wow, this is really cool. It's really rewarding. And it was that experience with Perry and Brian 15 years ago that first got me thinking, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I could have a business where I got to just do that all the time? And here we are now, 2026. That this has been my full-time gig for 9 years now, and it just keeps getting better and better, So
Oh, thanks for sharing that. That's a good story. So there are different types of founders, and probably you come across probably hundreds of those. So there are some that are technically strong entrepreneur, but they
okay.
struggle to connect at the human level. So any advice you would give to those people?
Yeah. So I think when people are struggling to connect, they might find that, so we go to events where like there might be other entrepreneurs and we're in a networking situation, and people who aren't used to this, they mistakenly think, well, what do I say to people? What am I going to talk about? And the thing is, we don't have to talk about nothing. We don't have to talk about ourselves or anything. All we have to do is just ask somebody else a question, and let them talk. And so one of the questions that I love asking of entrepreneurs is, what are you doing in your business right now that has you most inspired, most excited right now? And I'll tell you what, you ask an entrepreneur that question, and they're just going to start talking, man. They're going to start telling you about all the cool stuff they're working on. And and here's the thing. When we really want to make connection with other people, it's not about talking about us. It's not about talking about what we do or any of that stuff. And we just by asking one question and then by listening intently to what they share with us because we genuinely want to get to know that person and stuff. And then as we're listening to what they're sharing, what happens is we I'm just this naturally curious guy. They start sharing about one thing and I start asking them questions about that. Well, they share that. I ask them another question. They share more, and and they'll just keep sharing. And what happens is through this process, we end up giving people a gift that they hardly ever get to receive, which is this gift of feeling seen, heard, and understood. And that just comes through asking questions and then genuinely listening for what they share with us and showing an active interest in what they share with us. And eventually they're going to get to the point where like, okay, Kev, Gazenfer, enough about me. Tell me about you. And they're going to be genuinely interested in hearing about us and what we do. And so, connecting with people is far, far easier than we ever think it is. And all we got to do is ask a good question. What are you doing in your business? What's got you most jazzed and inspired right now about your business? You'll get people talking.
Very true. Genuine conversations, sharing what you do, definitely. Nobody likes to hear everything about your business page. That's not the place to do a business page. People will come talk to you once they start building the trust. So everybody will come give you a business. So, on the same note, like what should entrepreneurs, founders stop doing if they want to build better relationships?
Well, I think that a lot of entrepreneurs think that we have to show up a certain way, and that, or if I, and we see people in our industry that are successful, and we might think, well, you know what, if I was more like them, then I'd be more successful, or what have you. And the reality is, we can just show up and be us, complete with our gifts and with like what we might perceive as our flaws, but yet it's our flaws what really attracts people to us, because they're like, well, I can tell you, a good friend of mine years ago, he was my very first introduction to business back in 1995. And he was my very first introduction to direct response marketing. Joe Polish was his name. And when I first started learning from Joe, I really put him on this pedestal because I'm like, my goodness, this guy is so smart, and the stuff he's teaching me is just wow. And it's really having such an impact on my business. But when I got to hang out with him one time, I had gone down to one of his events, and I flew in a day early because he wanted to hang out. And him and I went out for lunch for the day, and we went hanging out one of these malls in Arizona and stuff. And after hanging out with him for the afternoon, I was like, you know what? Yep, this guy Joe, he really is smart. No doubt about it. He's smart. But what I found out was, man, he's just a regular guy, just like me too. And hanging out with him that way just really helped me to discover that. And it gave me hope, because where I once put him on this pedestal, I'm like, Joe, I said, yeah, you are a really brilliant guy when it comes to marketing, but man, you also give me hope, because if a guy like you can figure stuff out, I know I can too. And all these years later, man, the stuff that guy has gone on to do has been absolutely amazing. And you know what, man, my life has turned out pretty well too. And yet I still struggle with a lot of things. There's some things like this really small group of things that I'm really, really good at. And most of the other stuff in my business and even in my life, I kind of pretty much suck at and I need help with too. And we're all doing the best we can with what we got. And that is true for every single one of us. And the faster that we realize that, and the faster we realize that we can just show up and be us, and just, we don't have, my buddy Jesse always says this, I got nothing to prove and nothing to hide. And when we can just show up that way, I'll tell you what, man, talk about a weight being lifted. And it doesn't matter who we're talking with. We're just showing up and being us and being of service. And when we show up that way, like you said, Gazan, for the right of people, they just get attracted to us. And because it's how we make them feel when they're around us and when we're in our presence. They just like that.
Cool, cool. Now, good point. So we have those artificial walls created. We feel
Yeah.
like people who have achieved and then people who have not. There are some boundaries. We are all, the people are same. I think once you get into that circle, I mean, this is one of the thing I learned in EO. So as you are in those forums, when people are vulnerable, you start to realize we are all same humans.
Yeah.
We all have different things in our life, some strengths, some weaknesses, some challenges. So it's just that everybody has handled things differently.
Yeah.
So and these conversations build those trust. And once you start building these trust, that's where things open up and you have more opportunities. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and I mean, on the same line, what do high trust people do consistently that low trust people never notice or value?
Well, so in building trust with people, so I have been really focused on creating valuable relationships for over 20 years. And I've always had this little litmus test that I use whenever for starters, anytime I want to bring somebody into my world, especially into my inner circle, I'm always looking at, okay, is this somebody that I would be willing to invite into my home for dinner with my family and I? And if the answer to that question is no for any reason, then I've got no business doing business with that person either. And and in fact, I don't have a single client that is not a friend too. And in fact, I just had this morning, one of my clients texted me because he was so excited. He's like, Kevin, I just wanted 10 minutes of your time today at some point because I guess I got this story I got to share with you. And 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 I'll tell you, when we spoke, man, he was so excited. And I tell you, there's major stuff going on in the world right now. And there's some stuff that we're seeing in the media that this guy, he had a major role in some stuff that's going on right now that's real. I can't talk about it, but when he shared it with me, I'm just like, wow. And he's like, Kevin, it's just like you always say, it's all about the right relationships. And it is all about that. And so, when we just focus on that, and so that's one of the things that I always look at is this somebody that I'd be willing to invite into my home for dinner with my family? And then the other thing that I really look at too is when I'm making introductions, because I have made, I don't know how many thousands of introductions over the years. I'm always looking at, will this further the relationship that I have with both of these people? And if the answer is not a resounding yes on both sides of that equation, then I would never ever make that introduction, because it's always about furthering the relationship that I already have with somebody. And so I gave the example of Joe Polish. Joe and I, we go back 30 plus years, 31 years at this point in time, and back in 1995, Joe had not accomplished some of the things that he's accomplished now. And and that relationship that goes back, there's a lot of people. I won't say people coming to me all the time saying, hey, will you introduce me to Joe? But when somebody does come to me and said, hey, I know you're close friends with Joe, would you be open to making an introduction? I'm like, well, I said, what's the purpose of the introduction? What do you have to bring to the table for Joe and stuff? And I'm always looking at that because I'm not going to put anybody in front of Joe that I think for 1 second would in any way damage the relationship that him and I have. And that's always what we want to be looking at, is just, focus on furthering the relationships that we have with people. And if we just always focus on, that's my goal, that's what I want to do, then you know what? I mean, yeah, we might drop the ball here and there. We might some, and I've had it happen where I introduced somebody and things didn't work out like I'd hoped or like I'd planned, and that happens on occasion. But as a general rule, we focus on that, and that is our North Star. I'll tell you, that will lead to some longevity when it comes to relationships. So like, I mean, like I said, I've been relationships going back 30 years and stuff, you know.
Cool, cool, cool. No, I mean, this is very good insight. Like, I think, as you said earlier, you will introduce people if you can you bring them to your family dinner.
Yeah,
So I was reading somewhere where somebody said, if you want to marry somebody, first question is, can you go, do you think you can take this person to a war with you? If the answer is yes. So the same goes with every type of relationship. Is
yeah,
just so I think the key part is it's not a transaction. We're looking at the
that's
long
right.
term. So for
That's
long
right.
term, it could be anything, not just at one deal.
That's
Because
right.
you
That's
will
right.
find so many people for one-time deals
Yeah.
for the
And
last time.
you know what, you bring up such a big point right there, because I gave the example of Joe. Him and I met 30 years ago, and our relationship was at that level 30 years ago. But over the last 30 years, man, Joe has done a lot of stuff in 30 years. I've done a lot of stuff in 30 years. And so our relationship today is so much more valuable now than it was 30 years ago. And what's possible through that relationship today is so much bigger now. And that's what happens is relationships expand because we are expanding. We as individuals are constantly growing and evolving and becoming just, I don't want to say better versions of ourselves, becoming newer versions. We just become more powerful and more effective the more we do what we do and the more experience we have. I mean, I turned 60 years old this last year, and I feel at 60, because then I don't know how you feel, but I feel like I'm just really now starting to figure stuff out. So
The older we get, the wiser we are, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Cool. So, I was gonna ask that later, but you talked about Joe multiple times. I read his book Genius Network. So, do you recommend any book? What is your favorite book on the relationship? Uh, do you read books?
Oh yeah, I definitely do read books. And hands down, my favorite book ever is a book called The Go-Giver by Bob Burg. I can't remember. He had a co-author on that book. But I have read that book. That book was first given to me by Bedros Keuilian 11 years ago, and I reread that book every single year. It's a quick, easy read. It's a story. It's a parable. But it is, man, it is powerful, and it is packed with just such good insight. And it's so interesting. Every year when I reread that book, I always get something new. And after all these times of reading it, I'm still amazed that, like, wow, you pick up stuff. I've read this book a bunch of times and I did not pick up that before out of all those times. And that is, yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty avid reader, and I just a plug for a guy that is a client, Rob Neuenschwander. The book I'm reading right now is a book called From Crisis to Clarity by Rob Neuenschwander, Rod is the co-founder of a company called Giftology. And and it was founded by him and his partner, John Ruhlin. And John Ruhlin unexpectedly passed away a little over a year ago, completely. I mean, just died of a heart attack, and nobody even saw that coming. He was like the epitome of health. But I'll tell you, what came out of that for Giftology as a company was absolutely amazing. And Rod, John's partner, tells the whole story in this book, and it is just such a fascinating read. And so, if a company is going through a crisis due to whatever caused that, This book is such a valuable guide on how to get through that crisis and stuff. And, every company does, and so, yeah, I'm a pretty avid reader. And usually it's books that clients and friends recommend to me is how I find out about good books to read and stuff. But yeah, Go Giver is hands down one of my favorites for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check that out. And yes, we use John Rowling's company, Giftology.
Yes.
I read that book. It changes my perspective on gifting. So work with
Yeah.
them. Yes, it was very unexpected.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
shocked to hear John's death last year. Also, I want to correct myself when I was asking this question. I said Genius Network, the book. No, that's Joe's. He's the founder of Genius Network. That was his
Yes.
mastermind. But his book is one of my favorite. What's in it for them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So, what is something people believe that it earns trust, but in reality, it actually destroys it?
Okay, so what is something that people think that builds trust but actually destroys trust?
Right.
So here's the thing, and we've talked about this before on this as about just feeling like we need to show up a certain way. And that is definitely a huge detriment to creating trust with people. And you mentioned Genius Network, and I've been a part of so many entrepreneur groups and masterminds over the years, and a lot of groups, intentionally or not, a lot of times, especially if the group is geared towards having conversations where people share best practices, what kind of tends to happen is people go there with the intention of like, okay, well, I need to talk about where we're winning and where we're having really great results and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. We want to celebrate our wins for sure. But when the whole thing conversation focuses around best practices, it kind of causes us to want to put our game faces on and well, I need to go ready to talk about what's where I'm winning and where I'm crushing it and stuff. And a lot of times, we're really good at doing certain things. And at the same time, while we might be doing really good in this area over here, we might be like over in this area, boy, I could really use some help over here and stuff. And yet, in certain environments, we might hesitate to talk about that because maybe it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like this is the right time or place to be doing that. Or what would people think if they knew that about me, kind of a thing. And the reality is that, when we're in the right circles and we can just open up and we can speak openly and we can speak candidly and stuff. And when we're surrounded with like-minded entrepreneurs who, yep, they're world class at doing what they do, but like us, regardless of somebody's size of business or anything, we're all doing the best with what we can. We're all doing the best with what we've got. And we're so much more alike than we are different. And when we can just communicate and just be candid, speak openly, speak candidly, not being concerned about what someone else might think about us. Because the reality is, people aren't thinking much about you and I at all, Gazenfer. They're thinking too much about themselves. They don't care about us. And when given the opportunity, you know, uh, I can tell you, I love talking with entrepreneurs. I love hearing what they're working on, what they're up to. And if I'm able to help them in some way, by in my case, probably making some kind of a connection or introduction for them, man, nothing makes me feel better than being able to do that. And the reality is that's how most people are wired. And so this idea that we have to show up a certain way, or that we can't talk about certain things, or that oh, I don't want to talk about that because what would they think about me if they knew I was dealing with that? The reality is, when you bring that up, somebody's probably going to be like, oh my gosh, thank God somebody talked about that because you know what? I'm dealing with something just like that too, you know? And you just open that door for this real, meaningful conversation to take place. And that's where the magic happens.
Absolutely. Mm, no doubt on that part. Thank you. So, in today's world with AI driven, AI is changing everything.
Yeah.
How do you see the relationships are changing or going to be impacted with AI and this fast moving world?
So I'm already seeing it. I mean, you know, and it is absolutely amazing what AI is doing already. And you know, we're already at this point where sometimes we look at stuff and like, you know what? I can't tell if that's real or if that's AI. And we're already having those experiences. And that's only going to get compounded the more we keep moving forward. And I can tell you from personal experience and just having conversations that I'm having with really high level entrepreneurs, relationships, real, meaningful relationship and connection with like minded people is becoming more and more valuable every single day. And it's going to continue to become more and more valuable. And so, you know, with AI, it's I mean, well, just every one of us can look at that situation and see that, like, yeah, you're right, Kev. You know, man, there is, I mean, some things, yeah, I can see it. Like, you know, right away, my needle goes up and it's like, that's AI, you know. But then there's other things we start like wondering, you know, I don't know. You know, I mean, there was a news story over the holidays here that took place in my local area where a highway got washed away from the river. And what was weird was the picture. It showed the highway, and it was like a rectangle right out of the highway, gone, and it was right to the yellow line in the middle. It was like a slice of cake being cut out. And my wife took one look at that photo, and she's like, "That's not real. That's AI." And I'm like, maybe she's right. And I had to look it up closer and found out, no, the photo was actually a real photo and stuff. And that was what the highway looked like when the river washed it away and stuff. But the fact that we're questioning it, and my wife's knee jerk right away, that's not real. That's AI, you know. That is happening more and more all the time. And when we just kind of look at that for ourselves, you know, each one of us is probably thinking to ourselves, yeah, when it comes to relationships, you know, this AI thing, yeah, that's cool and stuff. And there's a lot of good things happening. There could be some, you know, negative sides to that too, obviously. But when it comes to relationships, we all are like, we're really cognizant of that. And we're all craving more real, meaningful, intentional relationships.
Oh, thank you. So, in our business, we work a lot with health tech organizations, startups, early stage founders. And a lot of those stuff are like apps and online tools where everything is online digital marketing, getting those customers more. Any advice for those kind of people how they could l- leverage this relationship building philosophy and help themselves in the long run as well as their business
Yeah.
versus because we are in a world where we are taught that a lot of that stuff could be done by sitting behind the table. And there are
Mhm.
people who have done and never got out of the building and they have done and achieved. So there are some, I would say, some those kind of examples as well that just give a wrong impression to many of the people. So,
Totally.
any
Totally.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, so there's, you know, the term marketing funnel has been around for a long time, you know, and setting up systems and you know, and technology, you know, has come so far that, and there's technology for anything and everything we could possibly want to do, you know, and it's really great. It's awesome. And it helps us leverage our efforts. And I just look at it all, like, even when I'm using technology, whether it's, email, whether it's text messaging, whether, whatever we're using, we're still looking at, you know leads and prospects and all of that. They're all people. And just by keeping that in mind, that these aren't just numbers, they're not just email addresses, these are people. And they're people who have come to us for a reason. And so, just, we just want to provide a good experience in whatever that looks like and stuff. And we want to be cognizant of that, that really, yeah, we can use technology. There's nothing wrong with using technology, but, just keep it real, and just have a real, we want to start a relationship, and we want to have an ongoing relationship. And that's certainly not to say that technology can't be used in that. I mean, heck, we all use technology every single day to communicate and stuff, but yet we all have really valuable and meaningful relationships through that process too and stuff.
So I have one other question that's more of a personal need as well, I would say. So what do you recommend for the kids, the teenagers, early career? My son just turned 19 today, and I
Okay.
have a 22-year-old as well. And like as these youngsters, we have seen that not as social as it used to be. Sometimes you go to the places where all these friends are sitting, but they're all still talking through their devices.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which is a dangerous thing. So, how do you convince or motivate these youngsters, or what strategies we could do so that start focusing on this relationship building, long-term durable friendships?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I was really fortunate in that about 10 years ago, I ran into these guys. They're not doing it anymore now. But these guys, Brian Scrone and Jim Shields, they used to host these events called board meetings. And they would host them in Florida. And what it was, it's a surfing thing. That hence the term board meetings was around surfboards. And it was an event for entrepreneurs and their children. And so, if you, like in my case, we've got 7 kids. If you want to go to that retreat with your kids, it's one entrepreneur, one child. So if I want to go experience that retreat with all 7 of my kids, I'm gonna have to go 7 times, because you do it one on one. And but what I and take going to that first one 11 years ago with my daughter Caitlin was such an absolutely amazing experience. And I'll tell you the story of what happened, because it is so profound and it plays into exactly what you're talking about. So, my daughter Caitlin at that time, she was a junior in high school. That at that time we went there, and on the first morning, after like going out and surfing a little bit in the water and stuff, when we came back into the house, we started going through this exercise, and Jim and Brian started running this exercise. And there was about, I would say, maybe 30 or 40 families there. So or 30, 40 people there. So 15 to 20 families with like an entrepreneur parent, was either a male or female, and their child was either male or female. And so they started with a big whiteboard, and they started talking with all the kids. And they're like, okay, so we want to we're going to start talking, and like talk about the things that your parents provide for you that you might not even like think about anymore because they just do it all the time. But yet you are really thankful that they do that for you. And so they start making the list, and the kids start shouting, well, my mom, she pays for my cell phone and stuff. And like I never have to, man, I get 3 meals every day, and I get, and my parents bought me a car, or, and they just keep on making this list, and the list got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then after they went through all that with the kids, then they switched over to the adults, and they started just saying, hey, name one thing that you appreciate most about your child. And so all of us adults start saying, well, I appreciate this, and I really appreciate this. And they started making this list again. And after we did that, what they did is they took all the kids and they separated them, and one of them took them off to another place. And then Brian stayed with us, and he said, okay, what we're going to do here now is you're going to write a letter to your son or your daughter, and you are going to talk about all the things that you appreciate most about them. And that's what we're going to do that between now and lunchtime. And so we all did that. And then after lunch, when we all came back together and stuff, they said, okay, so what's happened here is all of the parents, you've written a letter to your child, and all the kids, you've written a letter to your parent. And so what we're going to do now is we're just going to break up in couples, and you go find a place on the beach or wherever you want to go, and you're just going to read your letters to each other. And you're not going to improvise. You're just going to read your letter to each other. And I'll tell you, we got down on the beach, and my daughter sat down, and I started reading my letter to her. The more I read, she just was in tears, Gazenfer, because when I got done, she's like, you know what, Dad? She goes, I had no idea that you thought all of that stuff about me. She goes, you've never told me that before. And I'd told some of it to her, but she's like, you know what? She goes, I always just thought that she goes, I just didn't even know all of this stuff before. And when she shared her letter with me, it was kind of the same feeling because we'd never connected that way before. And one of the things that they taught us at that retreat was the importance of having one-on-one time together like that. And they're like, hey, when you go home from here, don't make this the only time that you do this. But once a month, set aside time to just have a one-on-one time together, like father-daughter date day or whatever. And here's the format for it. What you do is you're going to spend time together one-on-one doing whatever your child wants to do. So the parent doesn't decide what you do. The child decides what you do. And you spend time together one-on-one. There's no electronic devices. So for the whole time you're together on this, there's no electronic devices. And then at the end, you just have a conversation about what was the experience like for each of you. And so I have been doing that ever since, with not just with Caitlin, but with all my kids and stuff. And I'll tell you, Gazenfer, man, school and stuff, man, this world can be a crazy place, especially for kids and teenagers who just want to fit in with the other kids and stuff. They're all just trying to fit in, and sometimes it can be very difficult. And but having this time with my kids, I won't say that we don't have challenges and we don't have problems and stuff doesn't come up, because it absolutely does. But I also feel that I've got pretty doggone good relationships with my kids, and that when stuff does come up, we figure out how to navigate it and stuff. And sometimes, sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it hurts. And I had This happened over a year and a half ago, where my daughter, who is now she's 15, so she would have been 14 at the time, had a major falling out with one of her really best friends and stuff. And it was bad. And I didn't know if they were ever going to see each other again. And she was hurting so much. I mean, she was like, it just, man, she was crying about this. It was so bad. And of course, me being dad, man, I just wanted to fix the pain. And yet knowing that I can't. And I even told her that I said, Ellie, I cannot possibly fix this for you. But I want you to know that I'm here for you. And if I can help, I'm here for you whenever you want to talk. And I'm just here for you. And that's what I can promise for you. And the next morning, I come into my office and there is this sticky note. I've been had it on my desk ever since. This sticky note was stuck to my computer screen. And let me see, where's my camera? See if it says, I don't know if you can read that or not.
You are doing great, Dad. I love you.
Yeah, yeah. And I've stuck that right here on my desk ever since just to remind myself because that little sticky note from her meant so dang much when she was going through such a hard time. And I'm knowing that I can't fix this for her, but yet to get that from her, man, that meant the world. That meant the world. And we can't fix everything for our kids, and they are going to go through difficult times. And I know my kids, they don't tell me everything. I know there's certain things, I'm sure there's stuff that they're like, I'm not telling dad that. And so, but they do share a lot with me. And I'm grateful for what they do share, and I'm grateful for the conversations that we do have. And I think they're turning out all right. So
Cool. Cool. And this is the most powerful part of our podcast. So thank you for sharing
you
that
bet, you bet.
detail. So thank you. Really appreciate that. So one last before we leave, just a quick question. If someone listening today wants to start building high quality relationships immediately, what's the very first step they should take?
Well, I'll tell you what, the first thing here's because everything starts with appreciation. Every door opens with when people feel appreciated. And here's the thing, because then for no matter who somebody is, no matter how successful somebody is, no matter how big of a business they have, no matter how great things look from the outside looking in, there's not a person on the face of this earth that gets too much appreciation. We all want more appreciation. And so when we just reach out to people and let them know, even people we don't know, maybe we saw something that they wrote, something they shared on social media, maybe we saw a video online somewhere, an article that they wrote, and maybe you might even think, well, man, if I tried reaching out to them, I don't even know if I'd get through to them. Do it anyways. And if they had an impact on you, let people know that you appreciate them, because you will be absolutely shocked by how much people will respond to you, because genuine appreciation, just, man, it goes so far. And so I'll challenge you. We all got a cell phone with contacts in it. And you know what? Send out messages. Send out some text messages to some people in your life. Send out messages to 10 people and let them know one thing that you genuinely appreciate about them. Don't do anything else. Don't ask for anything in return. Don't ask for anything at all. And just send out some love, send out some appreciation, and you watch what happens. And what's going to be cool about that is you're going to be like, wow, look what happened there when I did that. And I was the catalyst for that. And you also realize that, like, wow, I can do more of that. And it's a pretty cool experience. But yeah, it all starts with appreciation, and just let people know that we appreciate them. And man, you're going to start opening up doors, because people are going to just want to talk with you and want to have conversations with you.
These are really powerful insights. Thanks, Kevin, for such a wonderful conversation. Thank you for sharing your insights, your experience, and your perspective on building real high quality, high trust relationships. Really appreciate you joining us on Lessons from the Leap. Before we wrap up, where can our audience connect with you?
Yeah, easiest place is on Facebook or LinkedIn. Kevin the Connector on Facebook. And I don't know, you can find me on LinkedIn too and stuff. And you can check out the $1 Million Relationships podcast. Check that out. And if what you see there resonates with you and you're an entrepreneur who's using your business to make your biggest impact and stuff, I would be totally honored to just have a conversation, get to know you a little bit. If it makes sense, we could do an interview for the $1 Million Relationships podcast too and stuff. So
Awesome. And we will include the link to your podcast, your LinkedIn, your Facebook
perfect.
in our podcast note. Thanks, Kevin.
Awesome.
It was wonderful to have you on our podcast.
You are so
Have a
welcome,
good rest of
Gazenfer.
your
It was
day.
an honor.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lessons from the Leap podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'll catch you next time.